Hello, welcome back. We're here again for our run through of the rest of the quarterback class. We spent quite a while on the first four prospects as we should have last week, but really excited to get into the others, Mike, as we may call them.
Yeah, you're right, mate. Good to see you again on this draft build-up time of the year. It's a good time of year. I think I was saying to you earlier, everybody's got their like top fives out and stuff at the moment for all these different
Yeah,
prospects, different positions. So it's kind of fun to see where people have them stacked up. Oh, you're right. We did talk about the top four last time. I think I said it was a head and a heart decision. I really would have quite liked to have had Michael Penix Jr. in there, but McCarthy probably going with my head. McCarthy just nudges it slightly. And we can go into sort of why that might be, and but talk about the positives of Penix now as well, and get into some of these others.
yeah, yeah. Sounds
Yeah,
good. So your number five is going to be
Michael Penix Jr. From
yeah, yeah,
Washington,
lovely.
and I'm gonna by your request this time, we're gonna try and screen share. You see that?
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
Here he is,
nice.
the man himself, uh, hometown Tampa, Florida. So yeah, 6'2", 216 pounds. I actually had him at 6'3", 213 official at the combine. Yeah, he's a sixth year super senior product of the COVID era, where a lot of these guys got to come back for an additional season. We
Mhm.
might, when we talk about his weaknesses a little bit, we might talk about why that was particularly the case for him. But yeah, we'll just talk about the positives to begin with. So hand size, 10.5 inch hands, absolute meat hooks there for hands, enormous hands, which NFL teams love. I mean, some people think that's a silly thing, but you know, everything the NFL teams, they love your win loss record and they love your hand size. It's two things they really a lot of coaches really value. He's got an unorthodox throwing motion. So number one, he's left-handed, and number two, it's very sidearm. It's very slingy, a bit reminiscent of like a left-handed Phil Rivers. And again, I think
Mm.
that has got some people maybe a little lower on him than maybe you or I am. It doesn't really bother me that at all because it's quite a short, snappy release. It is a little bit pushy, but it gets it where it needs to go. And I think, to be honest, he's probably the most natural downfield thrower of anybody in this class. Um, He's really,
Yeah,
really effective throwing the deep ball. So that's really where we start to get into the sort of the elite traits of Michael Penix Jr., which is he's almost the polar opposite of JJ McCarthy in that the entire offense was put on his back there, Washington. I mean, they did have three NFL receivers that are going to go in the first 3 or 4 rounds of this draft. So it's probably a sensible policy to throw it down the field. But he really was bombs away this year. And it was brilliant to watch as the Huskies went undefeated until getting to the championship game. But everyone talks about how well JJ McCarthy played in big moments. I think people forget Michael Penix played brilliantly last season in big moments, all apart from the championship game, where, yeah, he did not play well. There's no two ways about it. But um, beat Oregon twice, playing well in both of those games, and put on an absolute clinic against Texas, where he was accessing all different parts of the field. I think it was the third play from scrimmage in that game. Huge anticipation throw to Polk down the field. Absolutely electrifying throw to start that game off. Um,
yeah.
I don't think anybody in this draft class made it more splash plays with their arm than Michael Penix Jr. He can throw on the move. He can move a little bit. It's probably not a strength of his game. He ran a 4.5 40-yard dash, unofficial at his combine. So that's got people kind of scratching their heads a little bit because he really wins from the pocket. And I've sort of heard him being knocked for that a little bit, which is surprising to me because a lot of these talent evaluators about Caleb Williams say, "Oh, we'd like him to win. If there's one criticism, we'd like him to win in from the pocket in structure a little bit more." And all Michael Penix does is win in structure from the pocket, and he gets criticized for that. So that
Yeah,
seems a
I like
bit
that.
that
Bizarre.
seems a bit incongruous to me. But he can
They
move.
they certainly used him as a runner in his Indiana days quite regularly.
Yeah, yeah,
Probably
yeah,
had
and we'll
5 to 10 designed runs a game down there. But I guess the
yeah.
injuries just put him back a little bit in that regard these days.
Yeah, yeah. So that would definitely be in the negative column. The one thing I would say is there's also a little bit of talk that he maybe gets rattled by pressure in the pocket, and you do see examples from that, but it isn't that isn't the case all the time. Like against Oregon, there's one play in particular. I saw one game of his in actually the 2022 season where he was taking some absolutely vicious shots in the pocket up the middle and still getting the ball away on time. But so I think he's the most conventional of these top five quarterbacks that we've spoken, much more traditional, old school NFL quarterback. But weirdly, he has a 4.5 40 time. So I think people don't really know what to make of that because he clearly can run. He just chooses not to. And the reason he chooses not to is because what you referenced. He's 4 season-ending injuries. So I think he's had 2 damaged shoulders, a torn ACL, and then just another season-ending injury. I think that might have just been a knee strain or some kind of bad knee.
It was something with a knee. Yeah,
but he seemed to play with it. He didn't play with a knee brace on in 2022, but he did in 2023. So I don't know whether he is or isn't going to play it with a knee brace on in the NFL, but he certainly looked a lot more limber and athletic without it on in the 2022 film that I saw. So I think he would probably want to try and play without it on if he can, but it will depend. And that really is what people are knocking him for. The pressure in the pocket up the middle does rattle him, and he does force him into some bad decisions. And there are just some unexplainable misses against Texas in the semi-final and in the championship game against Michigan. There are just some misses where, Roman Odunze is open and he just misses him. There's Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game as well. There were a couple. There was a really bad interception in that game as well. So, you can see from his prospect grade here is, they still think he's going to be a good player. That's my feeling too. I just don't think I think even JJ McCarthy, my feeling right now is if you dropped him into like a Shanahan offense, he'd be able to operate it quite effectively. Where Penix, I think he might just need a minute. But then I think the upside, similar to Drake May, I think the upside is a lot higher than McCarthy. I think you've got potential for somebody that can throw it to all parts of the field consistently and wants to put the team on his back and win games, which I don't see that as sort of being the future for JJ McCarthy. What do you think about Penix, Tom?
Yeah,
you saw a lot of him last season, right? Fair amount.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he was my favorite player to watch last year. Just the way he throws the ball, as you referenced.
That offense is amazing as well. That's the best offense in college football last season. Amazing offense.
Yeah, it's Mike Leach's wet dream, you could say. The air raid coming to full fruition there up against in Washington, and I just love the way he throws the ball off and off platform. There's not much foot movement sometimes, but he can still get out and get the accuracy on those throws. I mean, that's the thing. If someone works with him and sorts his feet out and sorts his body positioning out and he's finishing throws and getting through it, I think you can probably fix that accuracy. To be honest, not that I'm a QB guru, but it does seem something that can be fixable. I think he should have won the Heisman. He was incredible in big games. He did not play well in the championship game against Michigan, but that was the one game in his college career he didn't play well in. So I'm slightly hesitant to judge someone just off one bad game when in the Pac-12 championship and especially against Texas. I mean, he was just incredible in that game, putting the whole team his back. So yeah, I love him. The injuries will hold him back, but I do think if he gets the right spot, kind of like Drake May, as you say, and someone can work with him, I think he's an NFL starter for me.
Yeah, I agree. He'd be the one in the first round if I was picking. I would probably take, I think, later in the first round. I think he's probably a second round grade along with McCarthy in terms of stacked up against other QBs historically and stuff like that coming out of the draft just because of those injury concerns and some rawness. But I think he'd be the one I take just because I've fallen in love with that film a little bit. It really was fun to watch this last year.
Yeah.
So that will bring us on to another very different Pac-12 quarterback, no longer in the Pac-12 anymore. So that's Bo Nix of Oregon. I'm going to share him now if I can. Oh, goodness. Having technical issues here. So yeah, as I say, he's quite a different player. He he is. Can you see that now?
Yep.
Yep. Yay. So we'll start off with the strengths. As you can see, decent NFL size, 6'2", 215 pounds. He's another guy who's incredibly experienced, 6-year player, COVID super senior there. And he is authoritative at the line of scrimmage, runs the offense, very quick, high release, very repeatable release. And he's got good, crisp footwork. It can definitely be tightened up. Like when he starts getting into an NFL offense and takes more regulated drops and things like that, it will become smoother. And I also don't think he necessarily lines himself up to throw all the time in the right position. That will come with NFL coaching and NFL training. But you can see the improvement that he made as a 6-year player. This is a really important strength. He continued to get better every year. Now, some people say he's tapped out now. That's, he's 24 years old, or he will be by the time the NFL season rolls around. How much is he realistically actually going to improve? Is he always just going to be this quick rhythm thrower from the pocket? Are we ever going to get more than that? But I think somebody that's shown that they can improve is a good sign, and they can change and develop. And yeah, you may not have the highest ceiling. This is why we're talking about him as like a career backup, maybe 3rd round sort of player. But I thought he showed a lot of intelligence on tape. Knew where the ball needs to go in that offense. It's not his fault that the offense is very short. Dink and dunk, a lot of screens. He doesn't design the offense. He's just executing what they're asking him to do. A little bit different to Penix. He's a very good scrambler. So he might be the best pure scrambler in the entire class, maybe up there with May and Caleb Williams. He's got a very innate feel for it when it breaks down, like where he needs to go. And he's a decent athlete, very decent athlete. And I think it's hard to, you think of him at his early first 2 or 3 years at Auburn, where he's very much like a backyard scramble merchant. He was all over the place. And then the last couple of years at Oregon, very disciplined, very read out 1-2, then run, 1-2, then run on time every time with almost everything, to be honest. They didn't seem to get flustered in any of the film that I saw. It just, now you could say, is that going to be repeatable at the next level? 1-2 and run. Obviously, we've seen with a few players now that hasn't been. So he's going to have to add a little bit. But in terms of what they were asking to do, I thought he executed it absolutely to a T. Weaknesses, he just doesn't do anything that exciting to me on film. I've watched 5 games, one from 2022 as well. And there just isn't anything, there aren't any wow throws. There aren't any wow throws over the middle. There aren't any deep posts. There aren't any throws with like big anticipation. It's a lot of slant, hitch, screen, little tosses off, jet sweep motion, things like that. It just isn't, to me, it just is not NFL offense. Now, that's what we both said about Justin Herbert. And then it turned out they had an elite quarterback prospect on their hands and used him like Bo Nix, which is now do I think Bo Nix is that kind of a talent? I don't think so, because people were talking about Justin Herbert's arm at the combine being one of the best they'd seen, and nobody's saying that about Bo Nix. I just think he reminds me of like a much more mobile Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins has carved out a very good pro career for himself. So I think late 2nd round, early 3rd round for Bo Nix is absolutely perfect. Like, could you imagine him maybe going to back up Joe Burrow or something like that in Cincinnati? And I think because Burrow takes injuries, he misses games every season. Who better to come in than Bo Nix? Keep that offense on schedule, get it to Jamar Chase on a slant route, and keep them in the playoff hunt. I think that's going to be the kind of career that Bo Nix ends up having. I don't think he has the NFL starter potential that they speak about here, and that we were just speaking about Penix. Again, you saw a lot of Nix last year, mate. What do you think?
I think that's a good assessment and where his role can be. I think the arm is stronger than I thought when I went back and watched some throws. He's not a weak arm merchant, just getting a few balls over the intermediate. He can put some fizz on it, which is interesting. It's a tough one with him because I really thought he was one of the most overhyped players in the country when he played in Auburn. Potentially that Brian Harsin system in Auburn, getting under center and stuff, wasn't the best for his development. when they got into Oregon, they really seemed to sort that out, and you could see the natural talent blended with the command. And yeah, I think he can be a starter in the NFL. I'm probably a bit higher on him than you are. I think what teams will love are his intangibles. Just a real leader out there, a guy who can lead men, and a guy who will study, learn the playbook, as you said, call plays at the line, and just really take command of a whole football team. I think the NFL people will fall in love with that personally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to have 10 other professionals in the huddle with you, looking at you with some respect and thinking that you know what you're doing. And I think as people that haven't played the game, even at the high school level, sometimes we forget how big of a thing that is and how important that is, especially in pro and college football. So I think I agree with you. I think he can command respect, and I think that's why he's at least going to carve out a sort of a career backup role, which it's no small feat in the NFL. That's an extremely difficult thing to do.
No. I'm interested though, because you had a third round grade on him or second, third on him, but I mean, by all accounts, he's going to go first round.
Potentially, I think that might be a bit of like Will Levis kind of smoke from last year. If anybody remembers, that rumor where Levis was going to go in the top 5 and he ended up going in the second round. I think I see some of the for Penix and for Nix, I see some of the limitations that maybe Will Levis had in terms of just pumping the brakes on the first round talk. I do think we'll probably get quarterbacks in the top 4, in the top 10. Obviously, we'll have to wait till our mock to see how that really works out. But we could definitely see more. I'm just not sure. It's my personal list, my personal grade. Like I wouldn't, as a talent evaluator, as much as I love Michael Penix, I don't think I can take him in the first round just because of the injuries and some of the development, for example. So, but it's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? I mean, as you'll come on to with your cornerback rankings, it's, you like some people that other people are less high on. And if anyone says they know for sure, they're full of shit, because every year NFL teams miss on about 55% of these first round players. So,
yeah.
Okay, I have one more profile I just wanted to rattle through before we move on here. Hang on a minute. I thought that was an excellent pun, by the way. We're about to.
It was good. It was just not quite the slickness in the screen share.
No, I know. So it's quite cumbersome. We decided to do this as a last minute thing, bring up these profiles, and we should, number one, we should have been doing it the whole time. I didn't think of it. It was a good idea by you. I just hadn't got it set up, and now we're also dealing with my IT incompetence as well. So last guy here, Spencer Rattler. I have only been able to watch one game of his, and I haven't really been able to do any sort of detailed study. I've actually seen him play a lot, though, just over anecdotally, both at, not anecdotally, sorry, historically at Texas and South Carolina last year. I actually saw a game of his. And you see the size there, a little bit undersized, 6 foot, 200 pounds, can move around a little bit. He's got good starting experience in 2 big college programs. The pure arm talent here, Tom, is what I wanted to make sure we touched on. The arm talent is tantalizing. It is Drake May, sort of Caleb Williams good. He's got an elite arm. But Michael Penix Jr. as well, I want to include in that list. They're probably the best 4, not just on distance, but on accuracy and being able to hit all of the different NFL throws that you want to make. Rattler can really do that. On the negative side, what he does tend to do is play hero ball all of the time, even when he doesn't need to. Like first series of the game, he'll be trying to throw a deep comeback to the field, and it just is not there. And he's trying to fit it in there, and there's somebody open, in the flat he could just lob it up to and get a 4 or 5 yard completion out of it. He's never really learned how to go through a progression like that and just play the sensible play. He's trying to make hero plays all the time. But I think if you're looking for someone to develop on day 3 here of the draft, so in the 4th round, or maybe sort of mid 3rd round to mid 4th round, and you've got an established starter, I think Spencer Rattler is definitely worth a lottery ticket here, just because the talent is there. Been there to title. I think he's the #1 overall high school recruit in the country at one point, 5-star recruit going into college. So there's a lot of talent there, and by all accounts, the intangibles have improved. At South Carolina, he's grown up a lot, and he's ready to take on the NFL. I think that was a problem. Immaturity at Texas and being a bit of a brat and a bit of a me first guy. Apparently that has been cleaned up. Obviously, you and I have no idea about that, but just thought he was worth a mention here because I think he's an intriguing developmental option for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people's opinions of him are mired from his quarterback show days. Not a show I ever watched personally, but everyone did say he was very me first, a bit bratty on there. So I could see that. But I think judging him as a player, yeah, like you said, very good passer. I enjoyed watching him play last year. And there are shades of the Caleb Williams debate for this about me because he was playing hero ball at times, but I mean his offensive line was absolutely dross there in South Carolina. I mean it was historically bad by all accounts, and I'm just looking at some of his games. I mean, they only lost to Georgia 24-14. And I remember that he had quite a good showing against Georgia. He was really battling, having to avoid so much pressure in the pocket, and still standing there making the throws, using his legs when he could. And he's shown us he deserves to be an NFL draft pick for sure. It's just what he can do with the talent when he gets there. So yeah, I think people maybe aren't talking about him enough, and he could be an interesting sleeper in this one.
I definitely think there'll be NFL teams that like him more than Bo Nix. I just do, because the arm talent is intriguing. There might even be some because of the opinions on like Drake May and McCarthy are all over the place as well. So you could even find someone that likes him more than JJ McCarthy because he's made more pro style throws, like hanging in there and under duress. I mean, JJ McCarthy played from a clean pocket for 2 years in a team that was ahead in every game he played in. They were very rarely behind in any, if ever. I don't. McCarthy may never have played from behind. I should go and check that before we do our mock draft because that would be interesting to know. But as you said, Spencer Rattler probably played from behind in almost every one of his games at South Carolina. So I think he's got some really interesting developmental traits that you can work with. The arm being the big one. And we just wanted to get through a couple of honorable mentions as well because that's my top 7 guys there in that order that we've done them. So just to remind people, it's Williams for me, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy. Still can't believe he's beaten out Michael Penix Jr.'s 5, but I think it's probably right. Bo Nix 6, Spencer Rattler 7. The 8 for me is Jordan Travis, who I think is kind of like a Diet Coke Bo Nix, which sounds like a real insult because we know I'm not that high on Bo Nix, but he's the same player. He's very authoritative at the line, gets the ball out quickly, made good use of his big basketball players on the outside there for Florida State last season. And I just thought he played on time, played on schedule with a couple of anticipation throws thrown in there as well. I watched him play against LSU and also against Miami last year, 2 games for Jordan. And I thought he played well against 2 of their bigger opponents. So I think I wanted to mention him. Have you got, well, just before I go on to the last guy, have you got any thoughts on Jordan at all? Jordan Travis?
I think I mean, he might be up there with Daniels for the most explosive rushing quarterback in this class. Certainly very talented with his legs. He did show he can be a threat doing that, bring the running game to his game. But the arm, it needs a lot of work, accuracy issues, and just kind of trying to play off schedule and go through reads and stuff. It's not there yet for Travis. But good leadership skills, as you said, he can command a team certainly.
You make a great point about the athleticism. He's very plus athlete, but it is in a smaller frame. So similar to Jaden Daniels, it's a small, slight frame, and he took a bad injury last year, which is why one of the reasons why he's going to go so late. He's probably going to be a 5th or 6th round pick. That's because he's rehabbing a badly broken leg. So I think he'll be a tough one to pick high, but interesting. And then the ultimate, my ultimate wild card here, Joe Milton at QB9. An absolute cannon of an arm. He's built like a brick shit house, as we say in the UK. He's huge man, 6'4", 250 pounds. He's an absolute monster of a man. The combine, people were just laughing. If you go back and I watched his combine workout again, just because people have done all these cutouts of coaches just laughing behind him when he releases the ball because he's throwing it 80 yards through the air. His problem is that he can't throw short or intermediate throws with any accuracy whatsoever. It seems he just has an absolute cannon for an arm. So and he can move, he can run. He's mobile for a big man. He's very mobile. So somebody is definitely going to take a chance on him before the end of the draft, I believe. I don't think he'll go undrafted. I think someone will pick up a late round lottery ticket on Joe Milton. What have you got to say on the big man?
No, it's a good, certainly a good analysis. I bring out a Cutler comparison sort of thing to him, almost in that we've already seen multiple college teams get a hold of Joe Milton and think they're going to be the ones to turn him into this elite passer, and it just never happens. It's just a case of the Cutlers, as you could call it. But as you said, deep ball's great. The problem in the games I saw with him, when he got to the end zone, he couldn't make any throws in the end zone. And
tight windows.
It was against the Missouri game. He threw a couple of picks, I think, in the end zone when I watched that one. So that's the knock on him. Maybe you just use him as more of a running threat initially, if you're going to use a pick on him. But I think it remains to be seen. Can someone turn it around with that kind of skill set? It's going to be hard.
Yeah, and I think very, very, very brief honourable mention to the boy Pratt at Tulane. I haven't been able to find any all-22 of film of him, unfortunately, so I can't really. But I can see from the consensus he's below that top 6 anyway for most people. So I don't think it's necessarily a disaster that we haven't gotten to him. But I think some people feel like he's got NFL backup quarterback in his future, and I think the maturity and responsibility I think he showed and getting that Tulane program to where they were the last couple of years, being a part of that, I think is impressive. So I think someone will take a chance on him as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I haven't seen anything on him either, as you said, but it's nice a Tulane green wave prospect coming in.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, all 22 footage for the Tulane. The Tulane, what are they called? The Green Wave, Tulane Green Wave has been pretty difficult for everyone to come by, I think, particularly this offseason where NCAA are making it so difficult. So I think we'll just have to leave him for this year.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your lot. That's 10 quarterbacks discussed over almost an hour and a half of podcast time. So hopefully that was of interest to anybody.
Yeah, well, certainly very thorough from us. You can say that at least. Yeah, good. Okay, we'll cap it back for cornerbacks next, and then we've still got to do D-line and receivers. So lots more to come.
Lots more to come, and then obviously the big one, the mock draft. We need to get that announced. The mock draft extravaganza. We need to figure out when we're doing it and get it booked in.
Probably the Wednesday before the draft. Probably the day before.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Good. Give somebody the chance to trade up for JJ McCarthy in the meantime, so we know what we're dealing with. If not, you and I are going to have to try and project where that is going to be, and that could be interesting. Who knows?
Good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Until then, take it easy.
Go well.